I want to transition to the Chicago Bears. So Chicago Bears faced off against the Cincinnati Bengals. Yesterday, Andy Dalton got the second start of the young season for the Chicago Bears. Unfortunately, had to leave due to an apparent knee injury towards the end of the second quarter. That's when Justin Fields took over and eventually led the Bears to their first win of the season, 20-17 over the Cincinnati Bengals. The injury occurred, I guess, within the final 2 minutes or around the 2-minute mark of the second quarter. That's when Justin Fields took over, had the final series of the first half, and then played the entire second half. So let me first say this. I genuinely like Andy Dalton, and I hope that he can recover. I hope that he can get back to full strength and that he has a speedy recovery, because it is a shame from a personal standpoint to see a guy who started his career with the Cincinnati Bengals not be able to see this game finish and play out with him starting. Because this is a guy who, again, I'm sure the emotions were extremely high for him returning to Cincinnati. Yes, he returned to the Bengals with the Dallas Cowboys last year. In fact, they actually won 30-7. Joe Burrow wasn't playing at the time. But this was a guy who, of course, was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals in the second round, 35th overall in 2011. And so there's a lot of history there. That was the team he began his first 9 years in the NFL with the Bengals. So I'd understand from a narrative, from a storyline perspective, kind of heartwarming it would have been, how touching it would have been for him to be able to pull out a win against his former team. There's no question about that. But with that being said, the Andy Dalton injury is probably the best thing that could have ever happened for the Chicago Bears. Absolutely, without hands down, is the best thing that could have happened to the Chicago Bears, because finally, this is the excuse that they've been dreaming of and clamoring for to officially start Justin Fields. Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace were reticent to do it. They did not want to do it. They were trying to employ this more patient approach, this more patient strategy. I absolutely despised it. And now they finally have the excuse that they've been salivating for to just say, well, my hands are tied behind my back. There's no one else. There's no other backup. We got to start him. And so they inserted him in the second half. Now, I will say, if they all of a sudden throw Nick Foles out there, I'm going to have a heart attack next week. If they go on some crazy pivot and insert Nick Foles, I'm going to lose my mind and scream a bunch of expletives that I'm not allowed to for FCC purposes on this show. And it's not even on FCC, but I just try to refrain from using as many expletives as I can. But I would if Nick Foles was inserted over Justin Fields. But the thing is this, Justin Fields, I'm not going to claim he was great yesterday. You look at the stats, not enamored, 6-13. Let's see, 60 yards, an interception, 10 rushes for 30 yards, a lost fumble. He wasn't great. The stats weren't great. But let's not focus on the stats, because there were two big things that happened once Justin Fields was inserted into the game. And these are the two main reasons why I felt that it was absolutely imperative the Chicago Bears start Justin Fields. Did you see? This is the first big point. Did you see how inspired defense played once Justin Fields was inserted into the starting lineup? They were like, they were a group that felt like they were almost like caged and emotionally kind of locked into a cocoon, then finally felt like they could emerge for the first time into butterflies. And it's like they pupated from the eggs hatching to the pupa, and they turned from a caterpillar to a butterfly. They just said, the hell with this, we're emerging, we're flying. And so this defense was hands down so much better, light years better, once Justin Fields was in the game. And it's not a surprise, because a lot of times a quarterback, especially a young quarterback, can have a profound impact on the rest of the team. It can permeate through the rest of the roster. And this team finally looked again like the elite NFL defense that we've known them to be. They had 4 turnovers. They forced 4 turnovers, rather. 3 interceptions. Roquan Smith had a pick 6. They forced a fumble. They sacked Joe Burrow 3 times. And that's all in the second half. All when Justin Fields was, without question, the designated starter, at least for the second half. And those were that was the first main thing that happened, is that he kind of unlocked the defense once again. So it was a defense that finally felt like they could play at full strength and not just overextend themselves because they know they'd have to be out there on the field again in the next couple minutes. No, this was a team that knew, hey, we can give it our all right now. We can go all out right now and know that our quarterback isn't going to kind of screw us from behind a second later and send us and force us to trot back out onto the field. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, at the end of the day, who won the game? At the end of the day, the Chicago Bears won the game. Was it pretty? No. But that's what happens when you have a starting quarterback that infuses this confidence in the rest of the team. And again, I'm not going to necessarily say that the Chicago Bears won because of Justin Fields' play. I can't claim that. The stats don't really support that. I'm not going to make that proclamation. But what I can say is that his presence rallied this group and inspired this group to play at a level that we hadn't seen from them in several years, is what it felt like, to be honest with you. And so I think that his impact was that his presence just had a profound impact on the spirit of the team. The team finally kind of reclaimed that joy, that delight, that genuine love and affection for the sport that they play. And that's immeasurable. He possesses these winning intangibles. I talked about winning intangibles with Lamar. And sometimes a quarterback just has this je ne sais quoi you can't really explain. They possess these traits that are inexplainable. You can't rationalize it, but you know that it's there. And listen, I believe Justin Fields is going to be a great quarterback. Do I know that for sure? No, I can't say that I know that for sure. But I believe it, and I think more importantly, the players believe it. The coaches, reluctantly, I think will believe it. He's going to save Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace's jobs. That man, individual, Justin Fields, will save Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace's jobs. It's going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen. And now there's no way you can go back. And this is the beautiful thing, and this is the great thing for Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, is now there's no way you can go back to Andy Dalton even if he heals up. There's no way, because if you do that, you're going to inflict psychological trauma on a kid who you just gave the ball to. You can't give the kid the keys to a Lamborghini and tell him to drive, and then 30 minutes later, take back the keys, sell the car, and go buy yourself a Honda Odyssey again to be more safe and conservative. You can't do that. You absolutely can't do that. Because you're going to totally diminish all the confidence of Justin Fields. Now, if you return, if you take away the starting job from him and then return it to Andy Dalton or Nick Foles, whomever, because now you've inflicted psychological wounds and trauma that I don't know that he can recover from. Not all young quarterbacks can. So that's why I think this is a great situation, because now the Chicago Bears are kind of hamstrung. They have to start him moving forward. And I think that that's a great thing. And now they're going to press forward. They're going to usher in this new Justin Fields era. And ultimately, I truly believe that he gives the Bears a better chance to win, and they're going to be much more competitive, and they're going to win more games. And so I think it's going to be a win for everyone. Again, I don't take pride or take any pleasure in Andy Dalton getting injured. Let me make sure that I clarify that. I'm not happy to see that he's injured. I don't want to see him injured. But I do think that two things can be true. And I think that it is a blessing in disguise and that there is a silver lining. And the silver lining is that, well, now you finally have the excuse that you've been clamoring for to start this new kid.